Welcome to another episode of With Love Mama, the podcast. Today we have a beautiful birth story guest joining us to share her experience in different outcome to what she originally planned for, and that happening twice. So, welcoming Lorena, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm so happy to be here. So excited.
Yeah, I feel like there's just something about also just sharing your birth stories. Like, no matter how your birth went, it's just speaking to another woman about literally the most transformational moment in your life
Yeah,
is
100%.
unmatched.
I think you because we don't talk about it enough. I don't know. I feel like I don't talk about it enough. It's really nice to feel heard, you know?
Mm,
Yeah.
definitely. Especially when you have like we're going to get into with your story, you went in with one expectation and it went a different way. And in the medical system, sometimes that is because they're seeing it every day, they're seeing it all the time. It's just very much all your baby's here, everyone's safe, everyone's healthy.
Yeah,
But there's that lack of actual like emotional validation.
100%. Yeah,
Mm.
agreed.
So you mentioned in your like birth story that you sent in to me that you were really valuing for your first to be a natural drug-free water birth. So what
Mhm.
did that mean for you emotionally?
So I guess I had this whole, I was so stuck on that idea to the point that I have to say I was a little bit cocky in like my birthing classes because I didn't really listen to any alternatives. I was just like, emergency things can happen, but I assumed that that was all to do with the birthing woman herself, just not like opting out of the natural, process. And so for me, I was like, well, I know I can do it. I'm a bit stubborn in a sense. Like I'm a bit of a tough cookie, but I'm also stubborn. And so that was just like, yeah, I'm just going to do what my body's designed for, and my body's designed to give birth, so that's it. And I was going to be drug free. I was going to have a water birth, and I had my playlist all set, and yeah, it didn't go that
Like
way.
the whole like everything there to ensure it was going to happen, but like you said, the lack of wait, it could go a different way.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest with you, I think the biggest problem was being told that I had to have a birth plan, or like being implied that, like, come with your birth plan, let's talk about your birth. And it was all this idea of like, the idea of a plan to me is something that is, what you intend to do.
Mhm.
And so that was it. I wrote it down, I thought about it, I was like, this is what I'm doing. I handed it over to my midwife, and I was like, this is the plan.
Mm.
And yeah, it just felt like there wasn't an alternative in my mind.
Yeah, and I think that's even like so important to like highlight is the way that like birth plans are made to be so important in like hospital settings and like in the medical
Mm.
industry, but it actually should be more of like a map of if we can't, if this road's closed, where can
Yeah,
we turn around and go? Because
yeah,
if you don't have like the sort of not even backup, but just different directions to take when you get to that roundabout of choices, it does feel like at the end of it that you're just failing because you're not getting to quote unquote your destination.
100. And I think that's the failure, is like the plan either can go to plan or can't. And that's it. So as you said, if it was more of a map, it would feel so different to go off course. But because it was just like, well, I never got in the water. Like we never got there. So we just went down a completely, like, the plan just switched off, and it was a completely alternate situation. So it left me feeling like an absolute failure, big time.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. And when you like said, because you said you like never imagined yourself not like it
Mm.
not going to plan, like you were just like, it's going to go this way. What did that actually represent to you? Having that, quote unquote, perfect dream birth that you did imagine.
I think for me it was very tied to womanhood. And I know in hindsight that's a really toxic thought process because it damaged me a lot, going through that process. But it was very tied to every single woman I know in my family, and beyond, like my whole ancestry, my whole, family, all I know of are successful natural birth stories. That's
Mhm.
all I know of. Whether or not there's things that have not been shared, whether or not things ended up in disaster, all I know is that I was birthed naturally, my siblings, all that. So for me, it was just very tied to my body's made to do this,
Mm.
handle it, and there's no alternative. That's why I truly, like, deep down inside, I thought, for example, in my case, I ended up having an emergency C-section. I only thought that would be possible if I gave up, not if my body just couldn't do it. So
Mm.
I was like, there's that's not an option because I'm not going to give up. So, it's obviously very tied to me being a woman and me being able to do these things.
Yeah, and very much tied to like your identity, right?
Mm.
So it's like
Yeah.
very challenging of your identity for it not to go that way because your whole lineage, as you said, what you're aware of, it's like, well, that this is the truth for them, this is the truth for me. And you've
Yeah.
tied that in as like a belief. And of course, that would feel like a failure if it's gone in a different direction.
Yeah.
And yeah, like of course. So how did that actually feel hearing after your 4 days laboring? Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is wild, by the way.
4 days. I know. 4 days of laboring. We did a little stretch and sweep to move things along. That is a whole other story. Then we basically got through to being in the hospital. I dilated to, I think it was, my water was broken to move things along. There was meconium, which was the reason I couldn't get in the bath straight away. It was like, oh, well, actually, that plan's gone. So I got in the shower. That was okay. And then basically because the water was broken, there was a time limit, and I had been laboring for 4 days. That time limit pushed things along.
Mm.
So I got syntocin. So like I started getting drugged up straight away, and I was like, this is so not what I had in mind. I was given syntocin. Things sped up so fast that I started swelling. So but my dilation went down. I
Wow.
had never heard. Yeah.
Yeah, like when I did read that you wrote that, and I was
Mm.
like, that's so interesting.
Yeah. So I went up to 6, then came back down to 4. And then they gave me an epidural to slow it down again. So it was just like speed it up, slow it down, speed it up, slow it down. And it was like just, and then at one point they said it's not moving along. Like we can keep going like this, but we need to get the baby out now. There's no water in you.
Hmm.
And so I was like, fine, just do it. Like we have to do what we got to do. I got to prioritize my baby's health.
Of course.
And then yeah, like immediately, you're like, of course, best thing in the world. Like there's such an emotional process having a C-section. Suddenly you see the baby behind the blue. Like it's incredible. It's actually incredible. But I think it didn't hit me straight away that I was like, oh, but my body couldn't do what I intended for it to do, what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah, let's actually like kind of anchor in on that because like
Mm.
where did that actually hit you of it wasn't just a physical, it wasn't just physically that it had impacted you, it was psychologically as well.
I don't think it hit me straight away. Um, because I remember like a lot of like my mom and stuff saying to me, like, I was so shocked that you took it so well. Like I was fine with it. Like good news is baby's okay. Bad news is we've got to go C-section. I think it took me kind of actually, I saw a friend's home birth video and I lost my marbles because I was like, oh my God, that could have been me. Like I could have had this beautiful water birth. And I think it was seeing more women birthing after me, where I was like, I had only prepared with, stories of birth before mine, natural birth. And
Yeah.
so seeing that after the fact really then hit me. So it was probably like a few months. And then it just, yeah, I feel like I spiraled after that. And then, the pressure second time around to like, I better make this work. And it didn't,
Mm.
you know?
And I was going to ask that question as well because you tried for a VBAC with your
Yeah.
second, and
Yeah.
again, 4 days.
Yeah.
When I read that twice, I was like, okay, Superwoman, like that's actually wild in itself.
Yeah. Yeah. So second
Um,
time around was basically the same thing. Yeah.
yeah, yep. And so you did feel like going into that, was there an element of wanting to like reclaim like a experience that you had lost, or do you think there was also an element of like wanting to prove that you could do it?
I think second time round, I probably was a lot more realistic. I think in the
Yeah.
sense that I understood now that actually it wasn't all in my control. So I was a lot more comfortable with having a birth plan because I really understood that it's really not like a recipe for exactly how I'm going to go through it.
Mhm.
Um, I was prepared for the worst. And by worst, I mean, an emergency C-section because I had already had one. I was hopeful that it wouldn't go that way, but I think I didn't get, although obviously in hindsight, like at the end of the day, it's really sad because I will never experience a natural birth now because I've been clearly told, two C-sections and then that's it. It'll be only planned from now on. Um, so that's something that's taken a while to kind of get my head around. But I actually was more okay with it the second time around because I was like, it just went that way, just like the first time. I know that I couldn't have done any more than I did.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And when it was like mentioned to you, like the emergency C-section, like the second time around, because you mentioned that they said something about it, your uterus rupturing or being close to rupture, is that right? Yeah. Did that resurface anything in the moment for you from your first birth?
So it was actually me. I didn't call it. I don't know how to put it. I They were umming and ahhing, like, oh, the baby's kind of. There was a little bit of distress second time round, whereas first time there wasn't.
Hmm.
Second time round there was a little bit of distress, but they were very much putting it in the ball in my court. Like, what do you want to do here? And I was feeling so much intense pain in the front of my tummy, and I was like, this I didn't feel last time. I felt like the Hulk was like coming from the front. And I was like, oh, this doesn't feel too right to me. So I actually said to the team after it had been like, I don't know how many hours, like, I don't know, at least, 10 hours in the hospital or something. I said to them, if you have any doubts, if you think this might go to a C-section, let's just call it now because I can't put my body or this baby through anymore.
Yeah.
And so it was almost because I knew that could happen. I almost called the shots in that. Oh, I guess I called the
Yeah.
shots in that way because I was like, no, it's just going for too long. I've done this before. I'm not cocky anymore. Like I know that if I can't do it, I can't do it, and I have to prioritize both of our safety.
Yeah.
Um, so I kind of was just like, yeah, just make it happen. So they put the spinal block in, and it went kind of straight away. So it was more in a sense me being like, let's not drag it out this time because we dragged it out so much the first time.
Yeah, and you are aware of the end outcome of a healthy baby, a healthy mum. You know you moved through that the first time. Plus, I'm sure between having the second pregnancy, you had some time to process those emotions that were coming up. Is that right? Yeah. So going into it a lot more of a softer version of yourself rather than rigid in it has to go this way.
Yeah, yeah. Because you don't know until you go through it. And for someone with my cocky attitude, I don't know where it comes from. It's just, I'm super proud. So I'm like, you can't tell me that I can't do it.
Mm,
And I didn't realize that actually there does come a point where, I mean, the dilation was going down. Like, that's not something I can control. I
exactly.
can't do it. My body
Yeah.
just was not going to do it. And if I had been in the wild, I would not have survived. So, you know,
Yeah. And I think like that's a huge piece as well is mindset is a massive part of the labor and delivery, but also aside from how your mind can be so strong, you can go into it cocky and so confident, but
yeah.
your body also is the one that's actually moving through the rhythm of labor and birth. So if your
Yeah.
body is having I don't want to say like issue or problem because that's not like the right word, but if your body is having, yeah, like a struggle in that physiology of birth, that's
Mm,
actually completely out of the control of the mind.
yeah.
Yeah.
100%. And I think that's it. I think it's when you realize that going into birth, that, things can go the way that you don't intend, like you just don't necessarily have control over everything. You can soften in the whole process, I guess. Like I think second time around, like it was so much more painful second time around because the rupturing they discovered in the surgery.
Okay.
Yeah. So then, like that pain, they were like, "Oh, no wonder you were in so much pain. That was happening inside you." And I was like, "Well, yeah. I wish, like, had we worked that out, I would have gone in much earlier."
Yeah.
Um, but it was so much more painful second time round. But emotionally, I was like, "Let's just see where this goes," kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And also just that even of like mother's intuition, like you literally said, look, I don't want to drag this out. Like I'm happy, I feel confident, I feel really good in this decision. And
yeah,
that is your intuition even connecting with you like okay,
mm,
when like 'cause if you kept dragging that, you don't know where that could have gone.
no,
And
no,
you had that instinct of no, I'm actually really good with this decision.
yeah,
Instead of fighting that and like trying to prove anything, you just let it go and softened to this is what's happening.
yeah. I think that's so true. I think that's probably having been a mum beforehand. I think that was a different mind shift. I guess that was just like I can't put my own ego above this whole process. Like I just can't.
Mm,
So yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. And second time around, I think it did take an emotional toll as well because after the fact, I was like, well, there's no way I'm ever going to experience a natural birth. Like I just will never know in my lifetime what that feels like, and that to this day is a hard pill to swallow. But I've got to prioritize my kids in that, in that whole process.
Of course, of course. And I think it's always going to be like when we have fragments of like motherhood that are taken away from us in a sense, it's like there's always going to be that element there, but it sounds as though you're very like grounded in, yeah, I've got those moments where it's like it feels sad and it feels like a grief,
Yeah,
but you can still just like move forward and be so grateful for what you have.
yeah,
And that is motherhood overall, really. Like when you're watching even your kids growing up
yeah,
and all the things, it's like
yeah.
you're constantly in this state of like,
Joy and grief.
yeah,
Yeah,
literally joy and grief in one moment.
it's
Um,
so.
Looking back though, upon like both of your experiences, is there anything that you wish someone had told you about like the possibility of birth not going the way that you imagined?
I strongly believe, and you might, I'm sure you have this same thought process as well, that as women, we should witness birth before having our own. Like I 100% think that, had I understood it beforehand, I would feel so different about whichever direction it went in. Um, and I actually tried to do that. I was watching, that show One Born Every Minute. It used to be a show on TV. Anyway, it was the
No.
birth and birth and birth, and you see like the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I tried to do that. I was like, expose yourself to birth as much as you can. But I think if there was something that I could go back and change, it's just, and I mean, I can't, impose on other people, but I really believe that that's a huge gap, that women, we experience birth the first time our own, giving birth, as opposed to our siblings, like you would in a village. You'd experience other births so frequently that by the time it's your time, you I guess you'd know that things can go all different ways.
Yeah.
And just, yeah, that knowledge is experience, is wisdom. And I think that's something that, like, I feel like I was oblivious to so much going in the first time.
Yeah, we're so like sheltered from the reality of birth. We're just told, labor can be long and this can be painful and it could go this way or it could go that way, but nothing is properly grasped in the mind until it's sort of felt in the body. So
Yeah,
unless you're witnessing it in the like firsthand, whether it is like watching videos or like getting yourself in a room if you can, it's like that hits so different on like your brain than just thinking this is how it will look for me, or like I
yeah.
completely agree with you. And like you said, back when we had a village, women were supporting women in the process of birth
And
postpartum.
I know this sounds wild, but you would have seen it as a child. Like, that sounds drastic, but you would have seen it as a child.
Yeah.
You would have been around for your siblings' births and things like that. And I just feel like that's so lost today, or at least in our culture.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely. And it's even like you saying like that sounds so wild, but it's crazy that that's how our society has kind of conditioned us because it's actually just how all life is brought into this world.
yeah,
So it's even crazy that we have that stigma around literally
yeah,
how we're all here.
yeah. I
Yeah.
know it's wild.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
do think it's like slowly shifting and changing though, which is really great in like the birth education and women
Mm.
actually coming back to their roots and understanding that side of it. I'd love to finish off on a question and ask you, what would you say to a woman whose identity is completely tied to one kind of birth outcome, just as you were at the very beginning of your motherhood journey?
I think it's difficult to tell someone something that can shift their sense of self. I just feel like, hopefully, by sharing, my experience and how tied I was to that, motherhood can look so different in so many ways. And the way your I guess your journey to becoming a mum doesn't define you as a mum. I don't know if that makes sense, but I am obsessed with my children. My C-sections haven't in any way affected my bond with my children. They were born and immediately on my chest I breastfed. Like, there's nothing that I think, at least that I think, was altered by having a C-section, other than my own psychology.
Mm,
So I think if I could make, a future mum understand that as much as you feel like, it's tied to you as a woman, or it's tied to your womanhood, you'll see in time that, it doesn't break you as a woman. Actually, there's so many other parts of us, and really just the courage to get through it. The courage to get through it is humongous. And that really has, I think, formed another part of my womanhood that I wasn't concerned about before then anyway.
mm. Your
Yeah.
journey to becoming a mum doesn't define the type of mum you are. That is a beautiful piece to highlight in what you just said, because it is just so true.
Yeah.
It feels so huge in the moment, because it is so huge in the moment, in when things are not going how you thought, and you've got all these stories and all these beliefs and what you think, yeah, being a woman is, or womanhood, or becoming a mother is. But at the end of the day, you know, it's not to take away from that, but like you said, that didn't impact your bond with your children.
No,
That
not
didn't
at all.
impact you as a mother, and it's
Yeah.
showed you like how courageous you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. I feel like that was such a great conversation,
Thank
and
you.
really removing that stigma around C-sections being this like terrible, scary
Mm.
way to birth, because I think there is still quite a bit of stigma around that. And although your births both didn't go to quote unquote plan, they went to divine plan, because look
They
at
were,
how
and
much
they
is
were
for you.
beautiful. I have like honestly, it's the most beautiful thing to even in an operating theater to suddenly see your baby's face. Like there is nothing. I can't. Yeah, that's an experience I'll never forget. So
Mm.
it wasn't a horrible experience in the moment at all.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. And I'm just so glad that we got to have this conversation.
Yes, me too. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to another guest episode on With Love Mama, the podcast. If you would love to share your own conception, birth, or postpartum journey on our podcast, I'd be absolutely honored to hear from you. There's a link below in the show notes, and your story could be medicine for another mother that is listening. Until next time, honor your body, trust in your wisdom, and remember, you were, in fact, made for this. Love you.